It's Movie Time is brought to you by the Gateway Film Center, 1550 North High Street, Columbus, Ohio. Further details and showtimes online at gatewayfilmcenter.org.
The award-winning It's Movie Time is produced by John DeSando. Listen to the shows and read reviews online at WCBE.org.
I'm John DeSando.
And I'm Kevin Carr.
And this is
It's Movie Time.
All right, Kevin.
Yes.
There's a film called Midnight Special.
Has nothing to do with CCR.
It does have to do with Leadbelly back in about the 1932 for that title.
Yeah.
As you may remember, the train is going by the prison, I think. And
Okay.
the prisoners look at the light coming through as a kind of hopeful thing.
Yeah.
You know, and the Midnight Special, da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
Anyway, Kevin, is this movie worth watching?
It's directed by Jeff Nichols.
Yes.
Who is best known, he did Mud with Matthew McConaughey.
Excellent.
Excellent film. And he also did Take Shelter, a lesser known film.
Yep.
With Michael Shannon, who's also in
Right.
Special, and Jessica Chastain. Now, I found this very similar to Take Shelter because it has this very down-to-earth human story presented against a backdrop of something very fantastic, but that's downplayed quite a bit.
Yeah.
Would you be?
Yeah, I agreed, except for the ending.
Well, the
which
ending
I think goes over the top.
It gets a little big.
Oh, you're right. Which is very much like Tomorrowland, I
Yeah.
think, in its depiction. This is a science fiction movie, but it's as much, if not more, a chase movie, a kind of thriller.
The basic gist is this father has kidnapped his son from a cult.
Yeah.
That has been keeping him, and he's basically on the run for them. And the kid has an unspecified power. His eyes glow, and he affects he affects electromagnetic radiation, and can send out signals and receive signals. So the government's also chasing him.
Yes, right.
Because they're worried he might be
straight out of the 70s and 80s.
Yeah,
the government is the bad guys going after the gifted, and
that paranoia that you get with something like Starman or even Daryl, if you remember that movie.
Close Encounters.
Mm-hmm.
Starman's a good one for that.
Absolutely. So there is that fantastic element, but really what it is a story about a guy trying to keep his son safe.
Yeah, right. Now, Sam Shepard, who plays the cult leader, has adopted this kid.
Yeah.
And
there's a lot of backstory you don't get. So
Kevin, I love this. Now look at this. This is just murky enough for me to love. This distributed exposition whereby you're an hour into the film before you know what's really going on. Yeah. And I love it because my imagination is saying, well, it might be this, it might be that. Mm-hmm. And as long as they don't get too literal, and that's why I criticize the ending of this. Yeah. That's a little too literal. You know, why not leave it?
Well, and the thing is, it's very typical of Jeff Nichols to not worry about the big stuff and the fantastic stuff. And he doesn't provide really any full explanation.
No, he doesn't.
And that's kind of the point. Now, that's one of the problems I had with it, but I expected that because I'm familiar with how he works. Yeah. Even Mud, which is a story about a guy on the run and a dangerous man, and the bad guys
coming of age with the kids.
But it's really just about the kids.
Yeah.
And that's what Mud is about. But this sort of, I guess, genre Western that it was just kind of put in the background.
Yeah.
And so Jeff Nichols does that where he says, here's this really interesting backdrop, but let's not worry about that. Let's worry about the very human stuff. And if you love that sort of thing, and that would make that, I know people who are really into Jeff Nichols stuff.
Yeah.
That's where I'm not as into his stuff.
Well, Nichols has worked several times, maybe even 4 times, with Michael Shannon, who is the lead here, and he's the birth dad of the boy, and taking him away from Sam Shepard, whom I love, and who was dropped somewhere in this movie, Kevin. I wanted to see more of the cult. I wanted to see more of him, and I did not get it.
They just abandoned him at one point.
Abandoned him. But they apparently think he's... I mean, come on, there's a lot of Christ motif in here and other things.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of religious significance.
Wow, it's a mixed bag of all the tropes from these, which I kind of
But it doesn't fully deliver all on those, and that's the thing. Is you have... I mean, it's this very obvious religious... this chosen one child... glowing lights coming from the sky. So, but then it kind of never really puts any sort of strands together for that one.
And it has some it doesn't rely so much on its CGI in this, but I thought the gas station sequence was pretty memorable.
Well,
where you had the meteor kind of stuff coming down into the gas station.
It feels like his attempt to do big budget.
Yeah,
at times.
yeah. But it really is in some ways for me, it's a story about a father and a son.
Yeah.
And establishing a bond, just the way Kirsten Dunst comes in as the mother.
Yeah.
She, both of them have given this kid up for adoption, which I can't understand.
Yeah. Again, there's a lot of backstory. I was very interested in.
But however, in cult ways, you understand. If the cult wants the kid, and if you're in the cult, you would give the kid up.
Sure.
But anyway, the mother is like a new bond with the kid. And so both father and mother are trying to bond. So it's very much about families.
Well, and also his friend, who's played by Joel Edgerton.
Oh!
Who's kind of doing this on faith, because he's coming from the outside.
Yes, he's a former state trooper, or he is a state trooper.
And I think I found his character more interesting than Shannon's. Because Shannon, you can understand Shannon's character, her dad trying to save his son.
Yeah.
And he loves him even for all his foibles, even if his foibles are glowing eyes and blowing things up. But Joel Edgerton's role is this complete just reliance of faith in his friend.
Yes.
And in helping out and doing the right thing. And there's a lot of conflict there, just internal conflict about whether they are doing the right thing and how and the means by which they do it.
Yeah. And Edgerton gets involved in an action early on in the film. That's pretty serious stuff.
Yeah.
And what I like about Edgerton's character, and this is, I think you're so right, Shannon, although the lead, he has a very similar to what he's done before, a very intense, conflicted look that he perfectly does. Edgerton can change.
Yeah.
And in this one, he's like us. He's uncertain, but he has a kind of developing faith that carries him through. And I identified so strongly with him, and I thought Edgerton did just a great job with this thing.
I think he's the one. He's the real. I'm not the star. I mean, it's obviously all kind of mostly Shannon's film. Yes. But he's the real breakout in this one.
Yeah, he is. And now let's go back to, all right, so we have father, son, and trooper on the run. Yeah. We meet mom and all that stuff. Now, Kev, does it work out right for you? I know I've alluded to my feelings before about it as we move toward the end. How do you estimate Nichols handling that the denouement, maybe, if you want to say?
It's typical of what Nichols would do.
Okay.
I expect that from him. But in terms of the fact, and you had mentioned where it's sort of this throwback to stuff you'd see in the 80s. Yeah. And let's not forget Adam Driver, who plays the government agent who's involved.
Yes.
And he does a great job in a role where he's trying to figure out where he fits throughout the movie.
There were two things that he made me think of.
Yeah.
First one was he's kind of like the new Jeff Goldblum to me,
Yeah.
and it looks a little bit. And then Richard Dreyfuss, in a way, that kind of uncertain way that he's dealing with what's happening here. But, so he does. I like that character very much, and I'd forgotten about him.
Yeah, and it's that's where I found my most interest because like I said, I was interested in what was going on behind the scenes, and in response to that, how they handle the ending and how they handle any sort of reveals. It's not like it's a throwback film in terms of what they're doing, people on the run from the government trying to save somebody. But the way it wraps up, the way things work out, is not like the movies from the 80s. And maybe those were too simple, and maybe those got too big in a different way. But I don't know. I wasn't wild about the ending, but I was not surprised by how he handled it.
And I came to accept it as I thought back again about Spielberg and Close Encounters and that whole feel. I said, okay, this is not Spielbergian in many ways. But I think he probably is imitating him in some way in the humanistic side. I don't know. It's just,
well, there's plenty of questions there. Whereas Spielberg's had a much heavier hand. On Close Encounters. This still, I felt that it gets to a point where they say, well, I don't want to bother to come up with something great, so I'll just kind of make it ambiguous. And you can fill in the gaps.
Well, Kevin Carr, The movie is Midnight Special,
Yes.
directed by Jeff Nichols, starring Michael Shannon and Kevin Carr. What grade would you award this movie?
I'm going to go with a B.
All right, good one. And I'm going to go with an A minus.
Okay.
Kevin is usually tougher than I am, and I appreciate that so much. Well, I like having him as a partner on these, and I'm much more romantic about it.
Yeah.
And so I'm accepting all of its flaws and saying to anybody who's listening or watching, I think this is a good movie.
It's worth seeing.
Yeah, I think it is definitely worth seeing.